Hello, everyone, and welcome to Technology Tuesday, hosted by Out of the Box Technology. We're very excited to bring you these free webinars each and every week featuring tips and tricks from in and outside of QuickBooks, third-party apps that we love, and hot topics that our industry is encountering. My name is Jennifer. I'm the marketing manager here at Out of the Box Technology, and I will be your moderator today. If you have any questions as we're going through the presentation, go ahead and send those over to me using the chat question function on your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll make sure to answer the questions that you have. A little bit about Out of the Box Technology. We are a team of QuickBooks experts. We do training, integration, hosting, and support on all versions of QuickBooks. We do bookkeeping services, and we have a whole development team that does website design, custom app development, and data migrations. I'm really excited today to welcome Brandon Phillips from Fishbowl, and he's going to be talking to us about advanced inventory and warehouse management tactics. Now, before we jump into the presentation, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our learning objectives today. This is the first of our Technology Tuesdays that we are able to offer continuing professional education credits. So going forward, if a Technology Tuesday presentation is eligible for these credits, you'll see learning objectives and a couple of poll questions throughout the presentation, as well as a survey at the end. And if you attend live and complete those elements, you'll get a certificate of completion with the information about the CPE credit that you have earned. So here are our learning objectives for today, just a couple of things surrounding inventory management and warehouse management, and how Fishbowl has really used these insights to optimize the processes over the years. Again, about our continuing professional education credits, you can earn up to 1 credit for your attendance today. This will be a full hour of presentation, so that 1 credit will be earned. Again, if you go ahead and complete the polls that we run throughout the session, and then there's a brief survey that will be in a follow-up email with the recording. So with that, I am going to go ahead and run our first poll today just to get us started. And so if you can just answer that real quickly. Yes or no if you currently have an inventory management software that's implemented in your business. Give a couple more seconds for that polling question. And then I'll close it out and hand things over to Brandon to get us started. Great. All right. Well, at this point, Brandon, I will hand things over to you and you can dive right in.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. So just a little bit about Fishbowl. We've been around since about 2001. We are the #1 inventory add-on for QuickBooks. So that's kind of been our bread and butter. Most of our customers have come over from QuickBooks, not all of them. We have 4 main products that we feature: Fishbowl Manufacturing, Warehouse, Fishbowl Go, and Fishbowl Time. This is just a little marketing blurb about, we're the #1 requested manufacturing warehouse solution for QuickBooks. We also integrate with Xero and QuickBooks Online and all the versions of QuickBooks. But yeah, so that's what that is. We have several integrations, so people can run their whole business through Fishbowl. So if they got their Shopify and Salesforce and want to integrate those with Fishbowl, and then we have, different shipping solutions on that. A little bit about myself. I'm actually a marketing manager right now with Fishbowl. I've been with Fishbowl for over 7 years, for almost 7 years, getting real close to that 7 year. 5 of those years, I was actually an inventory specialist, an implementer. So I would actually be the ones on the phone training companies on how to use the Fishbowl solution. I would actually fly out I've been to hundreds of warehouses where I get to do a 2 to 3 day I've done a 5-day training. And so help them set up the warehouse and better use inventory management today. So yeah, that's my expertise in this. Yeah, and like she said, I really like questions. I'm so used to presenting in front of real people. So when I do these webinars, it's I don't know if people are liking what they're listening to. So please ask questions as we go, and she'll bring those up. And I want to make sure you guys are getting stuff out of it. Today we're actually not doing just a demo of Fishbowl, though we can do a little bit of that at the end if we have time. and just to answer questions. But today I made these PowerPoint slides about different inventory practices and warehouse management practices I have seen being in hundreds of those warehouses and working with hundreds of different companies in different verticals. So some of the stuff at the beginning here, let's full screen this here. Can you all see the screen correctly?
So we're seeing your presenter view, Brandon.
Okay, let me switch to how do I switch which one? Swap presenter. There we go. All right. Can you see the main view now?
Yep, looks great.
Perfect. Okay, so inventory management, the what, why, how, and things to think about. Okay, so some of this might seem basic at the beginning, but we get more advanced as we go on. But I just want to cover the basis because you never know what people know from the basic levels of inventory management. So why do you need inventory control? A lot of times people will be like, oh, we just, we'll survive with our spreadsheets and our QuickBooks. And there's a lot of reasons why that doesn't work out in the end. And it totally depends on the amount of inventory that they are managing. Okay, so first you need to know how much inventory you have for tax purposes, as you all know. If you don't know you have it, you can't sell it or use it. If you don't know where it is, you don't know where it is, the cost, the fine, where, losing time in the warehouse could cost your clients a lot of money. It could tie up your cash, obviously. If you remember back to your Harvard business case studies, they talk about Toyota and the just-in-time inventory, and they were the first ones to really start doing that in America, where it's like, hey, let's just bring in the inventory that you need at the time you need it, and don't store inventory forever, because it can tie up your cash and tie up your warehouse space. So Toyota was the one that first did that in America, and all inventories kind of been after that. Okay, what does inventory management really mean? If you're truly managing inventory, you'll know everything you want about that item. What it is, how many you have, where it is, how much it actually costs you. This is a big one. I've been to so many companies and they have no idea what their items are costing them. So literally, like, example, I worked at a place before, Fishbowl, and I was in a product manager, and we would buy all these things from China and we would sell them, and a pretty straightforward business model. But what we thought was our best item, like we sold, we're small, it was a small company, like 50 people, so we sold like $1 million of this one item. Well, when we finally figured out, okay, let's start factoring things like the shipping and the returns and the cost that it costs to support it. It actually, what we thought was our best item, it was actually a cell phone signal booster, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't, which is why we had a lot of returns on it. It was one of our worst products, actually. We were actually losing money on it, even though we were making a ton of, like, it was the one that was making the most money. But when we factored in all the returns, all the shipping costs, all the costs to support it, all those kind of things, the taxes and other fees, it actually ended up not being worth it. So we actually killed that product. And once we did that, the company actually was able to take off because now we could use our cash on better things for us. So that's one example, and we didn't know that until we started tracking returns and shipping costs, especially. Okay, it's tracking. So, by inventory management software by default will have, your quantities. Like you have 10 in this spot, 5 in this spot. But you can also, you can also track things by serial number and expiration dates and lot numbers. So Fishbowl is really good at that. Other inventory management softwares can do that. QuickBooks can do some of that. It's not it's getting a little better at doing that, but there's still a lot it needs to improve on. Like expiration date tracking, we have a lot of companies that buy us for getting FDA approval. So you obviously need to know all that kind of stuff. How long has that inventory been in your warehouse? How long have you been sitting on this item? Maybe it's time to drop the price of the item and get rid of it. How fast did your items turn over? It's really important, like I was saying with my example of the previous company I worked for, to know which items are your best items. And sometimes they're not what you think they are. Which ones are turning over the fastest? What is your min and max levels for on-hand quantities? Nothing drives companies more nutty and get some angrier than when they're out of stock of something that someone wants to buy because it's missed money like that. Out of all the CEOs and everything I've worked with, that's like one of the things that drives them the most nuts. So making sure your min maxes are good and preventing those stockouts, but yet not having too much on hand. It's a delicate balance, and an inventory management software can really help that. And then we'll talk about a little bit of ABC codes. And basically it's just a way that you can classify your parts and which parts are your most important parts. All right. We talked a little bit about this. There are common types of inventory management: just-in-time, stock, and then no inventory management. I've had a lot of people have that no inventory management system. Just-in-time, right when just have the inventory when you need it. Don't ever have too much of it in stock, but never have too little of it in stock. It's the hardest one to do, but it's usually the best one to do. So it works really great if you have short lead times. And that's another thing you have to factor in, right? Like if you buy your stuff from China and it takes 4 months to get here by boat, then you need to make sure you have it ahead of time. So you can't just wait on that. And we kind of already talked about the benefits of these. I'll just go quickly through this. The items can cost more because you're usually purchasing in smaller quantities or less frequent, so you don't get price breaks from your vendor. That's the other downside to just-in-time. But then you have more cash to use up on other things, and it's just a matter of your company, your industry that you're helping here. All right. You keep the inventory on the shelf. You will normally have a min-max level inventory that includes emergency situations, ties up your cash with the inventory. It requires more control to know if items are moving. You can usually get price breaks from your vendor because you're ordering in bigger bulk. Yeah, and this is just, I think we have it somewhere in the back, and this is a lot of if you're working with some SMBs, a lot of times they have like 4 people that work on the warehouse and they've worked there for 10 years, and so they just know where things are at, and they're the ones that know, and it's not really written down anywhere. But I've seen so many companies that have that, like, oh, we got this guy in the warehouse, he knows where everything is, and then of course eventually they don't stay there forever, and they might quit or whatever, and then all of a sudden you have to bring in a new person who doesn't know where everything is, and that can cause a lot of problems without an inventory management software. Also known as, I think we have that. It's very true. I've been to companies where they just literally managed their inventory on a whiteboard, and like they didn't even have QuickBooks. I don't even know how they function. They didn't have a computer until I got there. So it's crazy what you can see out there. All right. Inventory management differs by what you do, obviously. So manufacturing, distribution, storefront sales, name a few, e-commerce, all these are different things that really change depending on your industry and your vertical. Okay, units of measure is another complicated thing that when I do these trainings out to these companies, every company has different ways of doing unit of measure, and it's always causes a little bit of headache if you haven't really thought about it before. Are you buying it by the each? Are you buying it by the case of 6, the case of 3, the case of 2? Are you buying it by the gallon and selling it by the pound? Like, I've seen all that kind of stuff happen, and it can get really complicated. And Fishbowl is one of the inventory management softwares that can really handle that well. I've seen people try to sell like half in each and things like that, and it's like that doesn't make sense. You can't really sell half of a thing. Unless it is a thing that you can sell half of, then you maybe need to set it up as something different. So unit measures can affect a lot of things. I've seen people's QuickBooks be so messed up because their unit measures were wrong, or the conversions just didn't work out right. So their inventory asset value was inflated or deflated, however that might be. All right. Item codes, keep it simple. If you're making up new item codes, keep it simple. I've seen companies, for some reason like to put 6 zeros in front of every item. That's really unnecessary. Usually make it so you know what it means. If you are dealing with a company that has hundreds of thousands of SKUs, then numbers and whatever, and make sure you have good descriptions for each of those. But yeah, don't start with zeros. That's an old way of doing things, and it doesn't work well. And then people will export things into Excel, and it'll cut off the leading zeros. I'm sure all you accountants have dealt with that before. It's a nightmare. And don't make them too long, because if it gets too long of a number, then Excel will turn it into scientific notation, and somehow you'll export, import, and eventually you'll get that scientific notation number, and you'll be like, you won't want that. Anyway, and then of course the description is important to make sure you actually know what it is. All right, so Fishbowl can value inventory in 4 different ways. By default, almost all QuickBooks is just average. And I think just recently they've added the FIFO, but I'm not sure on that. But so anyway, average costing, right? Like, so if you buy an item that's $5 and you buy an item, that same item that's $10, and you take the average of that, so your item's now worth $7.50. So when you sell it, your cost of goods sold is $7.50. FIFO is obviously your oldest inventory. That whatever that cost is what you're selling. So if you're doing average, your margins will stay more similar. If you're doing FIFO, they can vary drastically depending on the different times you purchased it and what different price breaks you've gotten on that. Standard costing is I don't see this one as much, but some people still do it where it's like, I say this thing costs $5. And then when you sell it, it actually is like cost you $6, but you said it costs $5, so it hits a variance account and it gets kind of complicated. And then FIFO is just LIFO is just the opposite of FIFO. And we kind of just went through all those. But really, with average, there's lifetime average, current average, weighted average. There's all these different ways to look at average, and a good inventory management system will let you do all that. So in Fishbowl, for instance, you can do a lifetime average of the part, or you can reset it. You could weight the average, so all those kind of things. Okay, well, you guys are accountants, so I don't know if I want to go too much into this, but basically here's your different costing methods. This is the math I was kind of talking to you about. So yeah, one quantity purchase, 15, $2 each. Oh, this is what my average cost would be. Okay, but the FIFO would be different. So a lot of times, especially when you're explaining this to clients, like they'll get confused on why their margins are changing or the COGS are changing so drastically, and it totally depends on their costing methods. Okay, this is reorder points. So this is a safety stock or min level, max levels, how to calculate. So this is straight from a textbook, an inventory textbook. It's one of the most exciting textbooks you'll ever read. I promise you that. But basically, min quantity on hand equals lead time in days plus days worth of inventory you want on hand. Average units of sales per day, usually for a given time frame. Basically, how much do you want on hand at a minimum? Like, you want to make sure in case of emergency or some sort of seasonal something, you have at least this much on hand to handle any sales you might have that day. And then the max. You don't want too much on hand because otherwise that inventory will just sit and take up space. But yeah, so basically max quantity on hand, min quantity on hand plus order interval plus unit sales per day. So when you're factoring in your order points, you factor in lead times. You need to factor in how often you plan on ordering that. If this is a vendor that they only buy from once a year, then it's going to be a lot bigger than if it's when they buy every month, So those kind of things are important, and a software like Fishbowl can actually help you calculate all those. It has an auto calculation feature that will look at your sales that you've done in the past month. You can run it seasonally. You can say, how much did we do last month or last Christmas season? But we're anticipating a 15% growth this season. So you can even forecasting growth and all that kind of stuff, and it will give you min maxes based on that. It's really cool stuff. Really helps you prevent those stockouts. Here's the ABC codes we mentioned slightly earlier. Fishbowl has a way of doing this. Other softwares do. Again, this is straight from that inventory textbook. Basically, the codes will be calculated for the percentage of sales or manufacturing uses. So your A parts are taking up 80% of your company. That's what most of your company sells. That's the most important thing. That's the thing you use most in manufacturing, whatever that is. And then A and then B is these other things that you use but not quite as much, and then C's are rarely used. And it's kind of funny that you think, my company that I'm working with sells hundreds of thousands of SKUs. Most of the time, there are these A parts that are like 80% of all their business. Every once in a while you find a company that's a little more evened out, but that's more rare than you would think. So yeah, ABC codes, they're important. People should know which parts are the most important parts, and you'd be surprised how often they don't. Cycle counts. Okay, so a cycle count in the inventory terms is when you're counting physically your inventory. How often should I count my inventory? Daily, monthly, yearly, never. Do ABC codes help? So obviously cycle counts, ABC codes do help because if it's an A part, maybe you need to count it more often. Cycle counts is basically when you're doing your weekly, your usually quarterly or yearly counts. Sometimes companies will do it monthly. Um, and that's when you're counting just to check, make sure your inventory management system is accurate. Inventory management, any software system is only as good as the data you put into it, and it can't account for, you know, things that you don't tell it that happen. Like if inventory got destroyed and you don't say it, or if you have an employee taking inventory from you that you don't know about, it won't know about that either. They're not that matchable. But like I've actually, so one of my coworkers did one of these on-sites where he went for training, and there was a company that made wire, and they were figuring out that they didn't have any inventory controls, and they were figuring this all out, and they were looking at their books, and then all of a sudden like, what's going on? How are we losing all this inventory? Whatever. So they made wire, but it turns out they had an employee who was taking about $30,000 worth of copper every other month, and they had no idea. And so they were pretty happy with the purchase of a Fishbowl inventory management. They didn't even care if they used it. They already figured out that problem. Yeah, so it is, when you don't have inventory controls, you'd be surprised what happens. Product turnover. How often do your products turn over? What does it mean to turn over? Why should I know this? So obviously, we'll just go quickly through this, but basically, if your product, if you know, how long has it been sitting in your warehouse? How often do you sell it? This kind of stuff is very important to know just to make things run a little faster. Barcoding. What does it? So barcoding is, you know, it is. Let me talk about the magical power of barcoding. I've gone to so many places where they want a barcoding solution, and you know, Fishbowl is one of those, and it's probably one of our #1 selling features, and it is great and it works well. And you can, you know, use your phones or whatever to scan it. But I'm always surprised what people think barcodes can do. Sometimes people think they can scan a barcode and it will just tell them everything in the world about that barcode. And that's not always the case. Does it save time? It can. It can definitely save time when it's like, especially when you're dealing with headaches, or you know, if you're having a lot of times where we're miscounting or shipping out the wrong number or receiving in the wrong number. But oftentimes it can take a little more time because, you know, sometimes they'll say, oh, we just shipped out 15 and they didn't really count accurately. But you know, it prevents those headaches. Is it more accurate? 100% yes. What does it take? Well, it takes labels on everything. It takes having the hardware in place. It takes having a Wi-Fi network in your warehouse. You know, those kind of things it does take, or at least cell signal in your warehouse. And a lot of times warehouses don't have good signal. But once you get those in place, and it is a great way to do it. Now, a lot of times your parts will have barcodes on them already. You can just use those. A lot of times you'll have to generate your own barcodes, so that means you'll have to label things. But yeah, barcoding is really good. I've never met a company that does anything with inventory that has never wanted barcoding. You know, sometimes they don't put it away, they don't implement it right away, but they're always like, yeah, eventually we want to get the barcoding. It's something that everyone wants to do.
Hey, Brandon, I'm going to jump in before you move ahead. We had a question come in while you were just going over that.
Okay.
And it's about the different softwares and operating systems that Fishbowl will integrate with. So you might be getting to this later on in the presentation, but specifically, one audience member is asking if Fishbowl can be integrated with ServiceTitan, which is the operating system that they're currently using.
ServiceTitan, we do work with Linux. I don't know if that's I don't know. I'm not very familiar with ServiceTitan. So I haven't seen a Linux, so we haven't been a version of Linux, so we haven't been able to get on. Like, so I've done a lot of like Black Hat, Red Hat, I can't remember those ones, and yeah, Ubuntu and things like that. But Fishbowl works on those, and works on OS, or it works on, you know, Mac and Windows. And as far as our barcoding solution, it's on Android and iOS. So I don't know if that answers your question, because I don't know what ServiceTitan is, but I'm assuming it's like some form of Linux.
Yeah, no problem. I know that some of our consultants are really well versed in ServiceTitan, so or the gentleman who asked that question, I will also reach out to them and see if they might have some background on that as well. Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, I'd like to know if that's a version of Linux. I think it, because I've never seen Fishbowl not work on a version of Linux. And so there's that.
Great.
Um, so, all right. Do you track inventory by anything special? Okay, so again, food tracking, VIN number tracking, serial number tracking. In Fishbowl, you can create as many different tracking types as you want, and you can use it to track the inventory, and it really does help you. Do you actually need to track by serial number and food expiration date in Lotto and things like that? Obviously, if you're working with food, expiration date and lot tracking are almost required by law, or are required by law. So if you're working with peanuts and you have to do a recall, you have to know which batch you're recalling and where that batch went to. Serial number tracking, I actually did I was actually on an on-site in the Carolinas, and anyway, we were setting up the serial number tracking, and we set it up, and then like the next day, someone came and tried to return an item that they didn't purchase there. But luckily they knew that because of the serial number tracking they had implemented that it wasn't that. So yes, anything for warranties, serial numbers are really great. And with a lot of people aren't doing that, and it really can save them a lot of headache and heartache. Okay, so this is the last one of this slide. We have another slide after this about warehouse management principles, but this is just the inventory one. So anytime you are tracking your inventory, it comes down to you and your employees. And if your employees don't care, it will not succeed. Inventory controls need a priority of the whole company, not just one person. This is super critical. A lot of times, you know, when you're doing an implementation like this, you know, the person who bought it is really into it. The owners of the companies always want this kind of control, but then a lot of the people are like, well, I've done this way for 20 years, and why are you making me change now? And I have to learn these new things, you know. And so you do need buy-in. You need someone to champion it, and it's just really critical, because like if your employees aren't taking the time to put things into the system correctly, then it's not going to help you. So that's inventory management in just some of the advanced, some of the features on that. Any questions? Any other questions on the inventory management kind of basic principles we've learned?
Yeah, Brandon, I don't see any others coming in, but just a reminder, if anyone has questions, do go ahead and send those over to us, and we'll make sure to address them for you. But you can go ahead with the warehouse management portion.
All right, this is the warehouse management portion. This is even less about accounting, but it's really neat to know, and it's amazing how many people don't think of these things. Let me swap this again. Okay, so we got warehouse management 101. Basically, you need to keep it simple, keep it logical, make sure the flow follows the business process. These things all make sense, but when you look into a warehouse, oftentimes that's not the way they're set up. Think about the basics. Do you have a forklift? Make sure it will fit. I've helped people rearrange so many warehouses, and then they forget about things like that. The forklift. Oh, we use a forklift. Oh, but we put our shelves too close together. What does your worker pick items or restock the shelves with? You know, those kind of things are really important to know. So let's go into more detail on this. Okay, location, setup, and naming. You'd be surprised how people just do one generic room. Like, this is our stock area or our warehouse 1, and that's it. And that works if you have a really small company with just a few employees, and you don't ever think those employees are going to quit. But even in small circumstances like that, when you implement a room, row, shelf, bin type of solution, you know, think of back to your library in the Dewey Decimal System, where you have like exactly where to go to get that book. If you know exactly where to get that location, it can help new hires quickly learn the warehouse. It will help. It will help when people have to fill in or whatever on those warehouses to just know where it is. Anyway, those are the different types of location naming that you'll get. You'll get the very generic, we don't even care, because they'll just know where it is. And then you get the very specific room, row, shelf. All right, so here's the pros. We just kind of went through this. I always go through my slides one slide ahead of time. It's part of my problem, but Know exactly where the inventory is located. Yeah, take your time. Take more time to receive inventory or stock your shelves. Yep, all those kind of things. It does take a little longer when you have to tell your inventory where you put it. And when you receive an inventory and you say, all right, instead of just receiving it to your generic area, you're saying, I'm receiving part B201 and I'm putting it on shelf A in row 2 in aisle 34 or bin 34, whatever, then that takes a little longer. But with the inventory solution, it can go pretty smoothly, especially if you're using scanners to receive your inventory in. All right, easy to set up. You know, generic is faster as far as that kind of stuff goes, but it's not great if you have a lot, or if you're trying to grow a company, really. That's what it comes down to. If you have items that are heat or cold sensitive, make sure they're in a safe area. Does humidity affect your inventory? Do you have a rodent or pest problem? Please fix it. I've seen so many times we go through a warehouse and there's like, oh, they forgot about this corner of the warehouse and there was, you know, water damage and then a rat ate through it and like, oh, well, you know, that was actually really expensive stuff that you just lost. Like, make sure you take care of it. I like this principle here, the Pareto principle. Known as the 80-20 rule. 80% of effects come from 20% of causes, or 20% of your inventory represents 80% of your product movement. That's the ABC code we talked about. Basically, you know, 20% of your inventory is the most important part of your inventory. And so how can that help us with the warehouse management? Well, if that's the items I'm moving the most, I should put them in the easiest place to get to, right? And the easiest place to pack them, and the easiest place to receive them into. Not only that, but you can, well, I'm skipping ahead myself, but put the faster moving items closer to the dock to increase picking and efficiency, create shorter travel distances. Analyze efficiency and productivity of your picking methods and warehouse operations. If you're doing low-level order picking of cartons from pallets, for instance, a good trick to decrease labor and create a safer environment is have the fork truck operator rotate the pallets 180 degrees. So there's all these different things you can think about when you're helping them set up a warehouse. All right, the golden zone. This is what I was trying to get to before, but yeah, don't put your most selling items on the very top shelf or the very bottom shelf. Put them right where it's easy to grab. You know, try to make it so a place where they don't have to get on a ladder to get this stuff. That kind of stuff really, really increases your efficiency and makes everyone happier. This other one here, are my pickers walking across the warehouse multiple times per order? So a product like Fishbowl, when we tell you to go pick something, you can print out a pick ticket or you can get it on the little, you know, on your phone or your scanner. It will say, go to spot A1 and grab this item. And it will tell you to grab the items that are closest to the item first. We call it a sort order, and you can adjust it and everything. But that way, you're not wasting time going from one end of the warehouse to another one of the warehouse. If it's small warehouse, we may not think it matters, but sometimes, even then, it will save you time. I've been to warehouses where they've had golf carts to get back and forth, and they were picking items and they were taking the golf cart in between items. Like it was crazy. I was like, why don't you pick your items that are right next to it? Well, it's because they didn't know where they were coming up on the list and it didn't group them together. So those kind of things are really important to think about and it's things that a lot of people don't think about when they're getting their inventory management solution. Another thing, just as a total side note that I'm thinking about is the ability to control location groups. So with inventory management, so if you have warehouse 1 in Miami and warehouse 2 in New York, you want to make sure you have a solution that doesn't think you can fulfill an order coming out of New York with your Miami inventory, right? Unless of course you want it to, but for the most part, I've seen people implement these systems where they have inventory in far away places, and it says, oh yeah, you can fulfill this order, and you're like looking through your warehouse like, oh yeah, I was thinking that this part was actually in your Miami warehouse, not in your New York warehouse. So that's something else to think about when you're thinking about these things is the ability to control your location groups. All right, equipment can help your warehouse management. Henry Ford, if a man needs a piece of equipment and does not buy it, he pays for that equipment just the same as if he owned it. Sometimes that's very, very true. To save money, consider buying a used equipment if the equipment offers you a significant savings, at least 25%. Typically, where you save money in used material handling equipment is more specialized, non-standard items rather than everyday vanilla ones. So those specialized, meaning like if it's something that you're going to need every day, go ahead and get the new one because you're going to use it every day. But if you're trying to save some money and there's something you only need every once in a while, go ahead and try to find a used one. To decrease shipping materials costs and reduce freight expenses, limit your shipping container sizes to 3 or 4 if possible. An added benefit of doing this is allow shipping personnel to pack orders more quickly and efficiently. Amazon's really good at this. Have you ever wondered why you get a huge box and there's one little thing in it? It's because they limit the number of containers they carry, because it just saves some money. So that's definitely part of this. Something you need to factor in if you're trying to help them save money. And most of the time, when you're talking about warehouses, is it too small to move? Most of the time, you can find a ton of wasted space in any warehouse. You know, there's always space above shelves that they're not using. They can get a taller ladder and taller shelves. How is the spacing vertically on our shelves? Do you have the right shelves for your inventory items? Are we making empty locations we cannot access? The advice that gives, be safe, but get on top of the forklift and safely kind of get a bird's eye view of your warehouse, and you'll be surprised what you see. Here's our last slide of this presentation here. The right people in the right positions are key. It doesn't make sense to put someone who can't lift items in the warehouse just because you can't stand them in the office. I've seen things like that happen before. Get smart goals based on KPIs. Create incentive programs based on your goals. So in the warehouse I worked before this company, we would have incentives that if we got everything shipped out in time, we would get a $1 bonus for every 10 minutes faster we got things done. Or I can't remember what the exact numbers were, but a lot of companies have things like that. That's how Amazon does it. They have a little countdown timer on their little scanners, but theirs is more I don't think they actually get a positive benefit from doing that, but they get more negative ones that, oh, you took 15 minutes too long, so things like that. But you really can track how long it takes people from start to finish with a solution like Fishbowl. So yeah, and it could really help because it could help you get a lot more efficient. All right, any warehouse questions?
Brandon, you've been pretty thorough, I guess. I don't see any questions coming in about warehouse specifically questions here.
I know. So when I do these webinars, it's weird because you don't get that feedback. I can't make people ask me questions, but I go ahead and please ask me questions. I don't know if anyone wants a little demo on Fishbowl at this point. We didn't really originally plan on that. I know I have a high words per minute. I tend to talk really fast, especially when no one's talking back at me. So
no worries. Well, what
let me know
then? Yeah, I think we'd love to see a demo of Fishbowl, but before you jump into that, I'm just going to run one poll here. It's about what's your confidence when it comes to inventory management. So hopefully after this 30 minutes or so of you going through inventory and warehouse management, people's confidence level is going to be pretty high. Maybe if you're still needing a little bit of help, still experiencing some struggle, either this is helping you, or after going through what Fishbowl can offer, you can jump in and get a little bit more help that you're looking for. So we'll give that poll a couple more seconds here to allow everyone to just give some feedback on your confidence level with this topic. And then Brandon, if you don't mind and want to jump into the tool actually and show us what Fishbowl can do and give us a little insight, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll just kind of do a brief overview. As I said, I'm not really the sales guy. I've done enough demos in my day, but so if you have any specific questions, please reach out to the sales team. They're a lot better at this than I am. But I've supported it and trained on it for years and years. So basically, this is kind of our home screen. Fishbowl, kind of what we do really, really well is we're really good at the controlling their inventory ins and your inventory outs and getting you accurate costs of everything, whether it be accurate costs from receiving. And I'm not going to go through on how to do it. I'm just going to kind of talk about the general features because we don't really have time to go through on how to set everything up and all that. But like, for instance, in here, I can receive an item and then we can do what we can call reconciling. So this is actually like, I want to reconcile in the cost of my shipping. So basically my build cost for this is $10, but then I'm going to land a cost of my shipping. And when you land that cost, your actual items will be $12 because you've now factored in how much it costs to ship them, and you're getting a true cost of goods sold on your items. That's a really, really neat tool that you can do. So let's go ahead and, we'll just go through this real quick. Set up some fake number. What is the bill date? And usually you're going to be reconciling after you get your inventory, because almost always, not always, I mean, almost always, you get your inventory and then you get the bill. Sometimes it's in a different way, but right here, you can add items to the order that weren't on it. In this case, let's add a shipping item. Let's say, oh, that whole order costs us $50 in shipping. And then we come in here and you can see now that the landed cost is $30 versus the build cost of $8. So now oh, look, there is a different way there. And, for you accountants, there's a million different ways we can choose to land this cost. This is just a weighted average right now. But we can go, I'm not going to go into all the details of the different ways you can land the cost and choose to land the cost, but there's a lot of different options for you. Okay, so that's what bring your inventory now into the system. One thing we didn't really talk about at all in inventory management is your manufacturing side of things. And this is kind of one of our better bread and butters. I really truly believe that we have the best manufacturing for the cost in that, for the QuickBooks thing. People who generally try to leave Fishbowl, that's when they're getting to the SAPs, the things that cost them at least 6 figures starting, when you need a full team just to manage it, that kind of stuff. So anyway, so yeah, manufacturing, basically from an inventory perspective, what manufacturing is you take your raw goods, okay, and usually you'll set up a location and everything for your raw goods. You take raw good A, B, and C, and then you combine those to make your new finished good, A or whatever you name your finished good. And the cost of A, B, and C will roll up into the cost of your new finished good. And of course, you can put in things like labor cost and machining cost and all that if you would like, any sort of fees that you would want. And so that way you can get a true cost of what things are actually costing you to build. It's critical and it's crucial, and it's really awesome when it's all set up and working correctly. Another thing that Fishbowl does really well is, let's see if I can find an order that already has it. We do the staging. Let's see, let's go to the bill of materials. So a staging is like the ability to do sub-assemblies. So like in this case, like before I build this biker's light, this is our sample database, is this like bike shop. So if you're running bikes, so the biker's lighting system for cycling safety, okay, and you have to build this. But before you build this, you have to build this. So you can click on that and then look at the bill of material to build that. So you can do the sub-assemblies, and we call them stages, but it can tell you, hey, these are things you need to build, when you need to build it. Right here, we have this whole auto create feature where it's like, hey, are we building to order? Are you just wanting to build to fill demand? What if you already have 4 in stock? Do you need to build anything at all? Maybe you just ship the ones you already have in stock, depending on your demand. So we have all these different ways to tell Fishbowl what your demand is, so it knows what to order, so it knows what to build, and you can help guide it through all that, or you can have it automatically do all that. So we give you so many options when it comes to that kind of stuff. So if you have any manufacturing clients, that this is really a really awesome piece. Mainly just to, also you print out instructions and hand it to people so they know how to build it, and really getting that cost, and you're tracking the inventory of all of it. And you're not making too much and you're not making too little. Okay, and then of course, when you're shipping out all these items, that's how you get rid of the inventory. So purchasing, you bring it in. Manufacturing, you take your raw goods and make a finished good, but then you got to ship out that finished good. And in Fishbowl, you can create your sales order manually. You can create them through CSVs. You can create them through, we have, all of the plugins you'd expect us to have, all the different integrations with all of your shopping carts. So, your Amazon, your 3D cart, your Magento, your Shopify, your BigCommerce, et cetera, Salesforce. And then, of course, we do custom ones on top of these. So if there's a specific one, we do custom integrations with anything that you might need. Also, something I didn't mention, but I was reminded when I was scrolling down here, we do have like a time clock solution that if you want to be able to add labor costs to your manufacturing, we can obviously do that as well. So you could start your manufacturing job and finish it, so you know how much time it took to actually build it, and machine costs, labor costs, all that kind of stuff, so you can get an accurate labor cost into your goods. And it also works just as a typical time card solution, so you can also export to QuickBooks, do payroll, all that kind of stuff, make people sign in, GPS, fence, all that, all the stuff you'd expect. All right. But yeah, sales order. So now that you've had a just sales order, either you created a sales order, or it's let's try to find the one that's bigger. Okay, yeah, so you've created a sales order. You either created it or had one of the integrations created for you. You now go to the picking. Okay, in this case, we've already picked it, but it says, hey, we picked it from storefront in LA, stock, these different locations. And Fishbowl, you can tell it where, it will tell you where to pick from. It'll generally tell you to pick the oldest. There's different ways to change that. You can tell it where you picked it from. They give you all the options you could possibly want. You can group picks together, you can ungroup picks, all that kind of stuff. And then you can go here to shipping. And then once you ship out your items, they're gone. Okay, they're out of the warehouse. You can, obviously we can integrate FedEx or UPS or USPS, all that kind of stuff. You print out packing slips. It's just warning me. I have a warning set up right now where it's like, hey, they haven't paid for it yet. Are you sure? You take payments. Or you can, take payments to QuickBooks too. Whatever you want to do, we still let you do it that way. Okay, now the inventory is out of the system. But a couple things that Fishbowl does a lot differently, like we'll never let you go negative on inventory. We don't let you sell something if you don't have it. You can create the order and send them the invoice, but as far as fulfilling that order, we don't let you fulfill things until you actually have the inventory. So that's a little different than QuickBooks. We obviously we talked about all the different measures, all the way we handle the bill of materials is all great. So that's kind of my really quick overview on Fishbowl. We have 1 million reports, 1 million user access things, all those kind of stuff you would expect. We have these business intelligence reports that are really cool these days. So yeah, good stuff. Get all that data. I guess that's everything.
Great, Brandon. Thank you so much. One question come in while you were going through that, and
okay.
if it's something that you would be able to answer, or I know some of our QuickBooks consultants would definitely be able to dive into this, but what indications are there that someone who's using QuickBooks has really outgrown the functionality for inventory just inside of QuickBooks, and they need to broaden into a more specific and in-depth inventory management solution like this?
Oh, that's a great question. Oftentimes when you actually, almost everyone who does buy a Fishbowl, right, they've gotten to the point where they've outgrown QuickBooks, where they're having, like, if you go look at your inventory in QuickBooks and it's just a nightmare mess. Like, you don't know where things are costing weird. Like, it says you have 500 of this item, but you only have 200. It says you're negative 300 inventory, which how does that even happen in real life? Your costs are all over the place, like they're not accurate. So when you start getting those kind of QuickBooks headaches, which you'll get quite often, where you're like your inventory assets aren't matching your cost of goods, and you're like, what is going on? Like, how's this all working out? Then that's when a solution like Fishbowl really helps, especially if you're in manufacturing. Like, being able to actually say this is exactly what this item costs is a huge benefit. If you want, that barcoding and those kind of things, huge benefit. So that's I've never been to a training because every time that where the QuickBooks inventory was just working out for them because it was too much. But as far as like SKUs, we've had people that get Fishbowl that only have like 50 SKUs or 10 SKUs, and then we've had companies that have hundreds of thousands of SKUs. So like that's not necessarily an indicator. Just depends. Like when you're in Fishbowl, we obviously export everything to QuickBooks still, so all the journal entries go over to QuickBooks. All your like we'll send over invoices and bills to QuickBooks and like sales receipts and item receipts and depending on what needs to be done, all the journal entries that would need to be done for your cost of goods sold to your finished good inventory asset and your raw good inventory asset, all that kind of stuff. We make those adjustments for you, and it really saves the accountants a lot of time. And at that point, if they have a lot of users in QuickBooks and it's QuickBooks is getting really really slow, go into Fishbowl and most everyone can do everything they need to do in Fishbowl, and then you'll just have just a couple people in QuickBooks at that point too. So that's another reason to do that. If you have too many people in QuickBooks causing too much problems, I've seen that be an issue there too. So those are kind of some of the things. If you need additional like expiration date tracking and those kind of things are another big selling point. So
Awesome. Thank you for addressing that. Appreciate it. I know there's probably a lot of people out there who have dealt with those frustrations and then just thought that's how QuickBooks is. So it's nice to know that there's a solution out there to go above and beyond. So thank you for explaining that.
exactly.
Our next question is, how is Fishbowl deployed in the Linux environment? Is it a web-based application, or would you need a specific Linux package to install it?
We do have like a Linux version to install, and we can help you through that when you go through that, because it is a little trickier than obviously like just like a Windows install. But yeah, we do that. We do have like we call it Fishbowl Anywhere. It allows you to access Fishbowl through the cloud through a browser. We do have our own hosted solution too. So like if you need to host something, we do that. There's a lot of different ways to go about that, but yeah, we can install Linux.
Excellent. And excuse me for mispronouncing that. Linux, not Linux.
No worries.
But yeah, so I don't see any other questions coming in. So Brandon, if you had anything that you just wanted to touch on before we wrap up here, I have one more poll for the group, and then I have a couple of closing comments. So I'll leave it with you for another minute if you had anything else you wanted to cover.
I think I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, before I have a couple housekeeping things to close us out, I'm going to run our last poll here. Again, it's just, are you interested in learning more about Fishbowl? I know Brandon graciously gave us a little dive into the tool, but if you did want to have someone reach out to you for a more in-depth look, a one-on-one demo, or anything much more Fishbowl related, please go ahead and answer this polling question related to that, and we would be happy to reach out to you if that is what you would like. So go ahead and answer that question. Again, I'll give a couple more seconds on this one, and then I'll close it out. And Brandon, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate everything that you've gone over with us with inventory and warehouse management. And then again, last minute, just diving right into the tool there. Everyone appreciated taking a look at what it was that you guys can offer. So thank you so much for your time.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
All right, and with that, I'm going to take things back and just share my screen again. Just a reminder that this session has been approved for continuing professional education credits. You can earn 1 credit if you did stay with us for the whole session and completed those polling questions. And again, there is a survey that will come to you via email in about an hour or so that you can feel free to take that survey, give us some feedback on today's session, as well as a link to the recording of this presentation. So if you wanted to visit anything back, re-review anything, that'll be there for you. So thank you so much. And just what we have coming up over the next couple of months, we have a really full schedule this fall for our upcoming Technology Tuesdays. And again, all of these are approved for CPE credit. So for that continuing education, we can now provide that. We're really excited about it. So we have One that I'm super excited is October 1st, our Fight Against Fraud with Dawn Brolin. Out of the Box Technology recently acquired Powerful Accounting, which is a excellent firm run by Dawn Brolin, and she has so much expertise and experience in dealing with fraud. So don't miss that one. It's going to be awesome. I know people usually pay thousands of dollars to attend conferences where she speaks to this topic, and we're offering it to you here on Tech Tuesdays completely free. So don't miss that one. Invite your friends and colleagues and anyone who might be interested. And then just some tech tips from Chad, our director of IT. We've got T-Sheets coming on and QVinci, so it should be a really good fall with us here at Out of the Box Technology. If you have any questions about today's presentation, what we do here at Out of the Box Technology, or if there's something you would like to see us present on, please reach out. There's my contact information there on the screen, and we hope to see you again soon. Wishing everyone a great week.